Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. I'm doing this video sort of as a follow-up to my last video where I went over the latest Women of Marvel podcast where you had Sana Amanat, the second in command at Marvel Comics, and Judy, what's her name, who also works at Marvel, doing what I don't know. And they're talking to two of the major editors at Marvel, all of them women. And they were talking about the year end and what the year looked like to them. And I want to go over something which I didn't really touch on very much in that video. And it's where they seem to see the future of Marvel going. Now, I did speak a little bit to that where, Sana Amanat says 2019 is going to be the year of Captain Marvel. But I'm going to lay that aside. I'm going to talk about what they are expressing, not directly saying, but expressing that they think Marvel should be in the future. And this is something which is very important. So I'm going to take a couple of quotes from that and a couple of things that I have dug up from other sources as well to show you where I think these people want Marvel to go in the future. So first off, I'm going to give you this clip from Sana Amanat. This is at the end of the podcast where she's wrapping up her comments. And I just let her speak for a couple of seconds here.
That I was able to talk about the series. You should say what it is.
Marvel Rising.
But we joke that we talk about it all the time, but it's such a great series. Like, the feature was so much fun. And, I have the Squirrel Girl doll. I've played with it on camera.
Okay. I'm going to say something very serious for a minute, even though it is a joke now that I talk about Marvel Rising all the time. The reason I talk about Marvel Rising all the time is because there's this idea out there that content like this does not work, that people do not want Marvel content that is female-led, that is as sort of adorable and as cuddly as and still at the same time really aspiring and strong as what the series is meant to be. And I should note, these characters have existed for quite some time in publishing, and we want to really celebrate that in this animated series. And I have to plug it, because if we don't plug it, then it's not going to get the support that it needs. I mean, I don't mind.
So, you see, this is Sana Amanat talking about how important Marvel Rising is. Now, I don't think I can stress enough how much she actually means what she's saying here, for a number of reasons. So, before they were talking about this, they were talking about how they were using their podcast to crystallize the ideas of where they want Marvel to go. And this is her ultimate statement, because she takes this statement and she shoves it into a conversation where it doesn't actually belong. Also, she wants to be completely serious when she says this, and all the rest, the whole hour of the podcast, is just for them laughing and going on. And she wants to be completely serious when she says this. And on top of that, she tries to make an argument. Now, you and I, listening to her argument, know that it's a straw man argument. She's actually presenting something that doesn't actually exist so that she can knock it down and make herself look good and make it as if she had a good argument, which she does not. She thinks, I'm sure, that this actually supports her argument, which actually just makes it look as weak as can be. But we have those three elements. She tries to make an argument, she interrupts a conversation to put this in there, and she wants to be completely serious when nothing else is being serious. And they're talking in the vein of where they want Marvel to go in the future, because that's what they see their podcasts as doing, as crystallizing what they see Marvel being in the future. And so this is extremely important. And that's why I did my last video, because I think that statement that she put on the end there, that's her protesting too much. She's stating this thing because she has this at the core of all that she wants to happen for Marvel. And we all know that it's not actually true. We don't care if there are female protagonists, having them strong and having them being feminine as well and all these other kinds of things. Yeah, we got no problem with that. What we have a problem with is the comics that they are putting out and the characters, not heroes, characters that they are putting out. If they want to put out some good female characters in some good storytelling with all of those elements that she talked about, great. All of us would love it. But no, she has to put that out there as if we're all women haters, and therefore we don't want women in any of our comics whatsoever, nor do we want them to be strong. And that's just a load of lies. But the thing is that when she's talking about this, the actual wording that she uses is very telling, because she's talking about Marvel Rising in particular, but at the first of this podcast, they use that exact language to describe one particular comic character specifically, and that is Squirrel Girl. They talk about her in that vein. They use this exact wording to talk about her, because you have the four of them, the two editors, Sana Amanat and Judy, talking about how each of them loves Squirrel Girl. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread. They love these giant word balloons where they're all talking all the time because it expresses feeling. They love the art, and they think that Squirrel Girl is the best. And I'm going to give you in the background a bunch of random pages from Squirrel Girl books of this year. And you can look at those while I talk about Squirrel Girl. Now, they all love Squirrel Girl. They all love this comic. They go over that in this podcast itself. All of them talking about how much they love Squirrel Girl, how much she's cute and cuddly, how much they would love to cosplay Squirrel Girl. And on top of that, quite specifically, one of them says, and, you know, it's canon now in the Marvel Universe that she actually defeated Thanos. So take that, patriarchy. She didn't say the last part, but that was her tone. That's where she was going with that. You know, Squirrel Girl is the best. She's defeated Thanos. And that's canon. So let me stick that in everybody's faces right now who don't like women in their comics. And that's what she was going for when she said that. Now, I want to look at those statements and compare them with a couple of other things going on with Squirrel Girl and show you how important Squirrel Girl is to these people. So, going over the numbers for the year for Marvel and looking at the titles specifically that have been canceled, you can see that there is generally a cancellation number where they usually pull their comic and just don't publish it anymore. This year, for Iceman, it was around 10,000. And for the fake Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, it was around 12,000. And you had America Chavez, she got all the way down to a little over 6,000. So really low numbers here. But what are the numbers for Squirrel Girl for this entire year? Well, they start out around 9,000 and then they dip down to the bottom of 8,000 by the end of this year. So certainly within the cancellation numbers, in the area where they would usually cancel a title. But Squirrel Girl has not been canceled, and there is no plans to cancel Squirrel Girl. Far from it. Because if you look at something else which is going on with the numbers of books that they've been producing at Marvel, something is very significant. You'll see that if they have a title which doesn't appear to be doing well, you just have that title coming out, then they cancel it. Then they put out a trade paperback to see if it will do well. And they specifically cover that in this podcast itself, saying, you know, they do that, see if it will do well in the trade paperback. And if it does, well, then they'll put out a new series because obviously people want it. And I went over that in my last video. That's a crock up. Anyways. And that's what they do for most of these titles. You can see it happen. You know, with Iceman, you can see it happen with Wasp. That's what they did. There was nothing in trade paperbacks while the series was going on. It got canceled. There was a trade paperback. And then they brought back the series. But there are a couple of titles that are an exception to this. And one of them, the big one, which I would take as my standard, would be Captain Marvel. They're pumping out trade paperbacks for Captain Marvel all the time. And it's not hard to see why. They want Captain Marvel to succeed. They have been pushing Captain Marvel every way that they can. They want Captain Marvel to be the head of the Marvel comic universe and now the head of the MCU. So they're pushing it out there every way. So there's always a Captain Marvel trade paperback in the works and being published and being sent out. And you can see that when you look at the numbers. And you can say, well, they can do that with Captain Marvel because she has such a history. I think it's 50 years worth of history now. And so there's a lot of stuff that they can put in a trade paperback. But there is one other comic on the list of, I would say, SJW Marvel. Like, it's all SJW Marvel, but the specific very, very SJW titles like Unstoppable Wasp and Iceman and Kate Bishop's Hawkeye and Squirrel Girl, all of those, you look at them, and there is one exception to that general rule that follows the Captain Marvel rule, and that is Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl has these trade paperbacks coming out all the time as well. Not just in these little bursts to try to get the series back on track. No, they have Squirrel Girl trade paperbacks coming out on a regular basis. And it's not like it's Captain Marvel where you have this giant history that you can draw from and make trade paperbacks out of. No, she has a very small little history, and yet they're still doing this. Why would they still be doing this? Especially for a title that's only putting out 8,000 units. And that's not sold units. I always have to say that. That's units that were actually just shipped out. And I would say the sales for that, to be generous, would be about 2/3 of that. So if they're reaching 6,500 units actually sold, I would say that's pushing the numbers. But they're still putting out all these trade paperbacks for Squirrel Girl on top of this title, which is not selling. That's number one. Number two is that they are pushing Squirrel Girl in so many directions. She is literally everywhere. One of those things would be Marvel Rising. You have Marvel Rising, which has all of the characters that have failed. You have Squirrel Girl, you have America Chavez, you have Kamala Khan, you have Captain Marvel, you have Inferno, and S.H.I.E.L.D., I think his name is, and Lockjaw. All of these. The only one that really hasn't failed would be Spider-Gwen, I'd say. But you have all of these characters. Squirrel Girl is dead center of this. She is the concentration of the storyline on the main story for Marvel Rising. It's Squirrel Girl and Kamala Khan. That's what they built it around. You have that as well. And you have a bunch of novels coming out for children for Squirrel Girl. These are preteen novels for girls, which I would say are probably being pushed by Scholastic. So they have Squirrel Girl preteen novels. So you have Squirrel Girl in all of these venues, being pushed in all of these ways. You have these novels coming out. You have her in the cartoons. You have her in multiple trade paperbacks over the year. You have her in her own series, which is dancing on cancellation numbers. You have her being pushed by these 4 people who work for Marvel, 2 major editors, one the second in command at Marvel, the other, I really don't know what Judy does. And they're all talking about how Squirrel Girl is the best thing ever. Now, I take all those factors and put them together, and I say, look, this is what they want from Marvel. Especially when Sana Amanat is saying at the end of this video, where she had her quote, which I played at the first, this is what they want. These women characters are what they want. And she is saying right before that, that this is crystallizing in this podcast and the others what they want from Marvel. And in that quote that I gave you, she's using specific language that they used to describe Squirrel Girl earlier on in the podcast. So these people, these are the people who run Marvel. These are the people who determine what books stay afloat and get published. They love Squirrel Girl, and they want Squirrel Girl to be out there in as many ways as possible, and they want to stick it in everybody's faces that Squirrel Girl is the best. She's defeated Thanos. That's the stick it in your face. This is the book Squirrel Girl that you're looking at, that you've been looking at for the last little while if you've been watching the screen. This is what all of these people, all of these women, want to turn Marvel Comics into. This is their holy grail of comics. This comic that you're looking at in the background. They want all Marvel Comics to look like this. They want the stories of all Marvel Comics to look like this. This is what they want to publish. This is what they want Marvel Comics to be. And I just have to say, as someone who has read Marvel Comics from before a time that any of these women that are talking were actually born, these are not Marvel Comics. This is not a Marvel comic. This is not what Marvel should be. This was not what it was built on, nor what it became great with. This is something that they want to turn it into, and unfortunately, this is the Marvel Comics that is being built with the money generated from every comic they sell right now. So, if I gave you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shields in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think of Squirrel Girl. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye.